One of my favorite things about purchasing new construction is you get to completely design the space. And today I am joined by Mindy Webb with Mindy Webb Design here in Sarasota, Florida. And she is really an expert with working with clients who are buying new construction and are starting to design their space based on floor plans and renderings and hardly any information at all. So she is a master at this. But before we dive into all the content, be sure to subscribe to this channel, like this video, so the YouTube algorithm will share my videos with other people. And most importantly, if you like it and you also have any recommendations of different content, please post them in the comments below. If you watch my channel, you know that I love new construction. And so today we're going to talk about what that design process looks like and what it's like to work with a designer, which I would recommend you do. It's the much more fluid way. And Mindy can go all into detail about what that process looks like. So Mindy, let's say we have a client, which we've had a client in the past, who is buying new construction and they've purchased a floor plan, they're basing it off of the renderings, but they want to make it their own personal style.
Sure.
What do you do?
So each property has its own design center. Mm-hmm. So typically the design center will be held wherever the property is being built, mm-hmm. but there are some cases like the Sage project mm-hmm. that we both have worked on collectively. The design center was based out of mm-hmm. Miami because that's where the developer was based out of. So the first step is we have to pick out the finishes. Mm-hmm. So we collectively look at the floor plan with the client mm-hmm. and we, first and foremost need to figure out, are we going to switch any walls within the unit? Mm-hmm. There's just a lot of things you have to look at when you're, mm-hmm. Beginning a new construction project. Mm-hmm. And the Sage being another example, there are things with the floor plan that we changed around.
Because you have to kind of envision yourself actually living in that floor plan, which is kind of difficult for some people. They might not think about, well, do I really want the door to be here? Do I want any electrical too, right?
Sure,
they work
absolutely.
on where the electrical should be. Do you want your toothbrushes tucked in the the cabinets or not? So I would imagine there's a lot of little things that you really need to consider that working with a designer will help you do. I would imagine,
absolutely.
Right?
So the first thing we look at the floor plan, and then we'll go ahead and take a trip over to the design center, mm-hmm. depending on where that is. And we look at the finishes. So the first thing you always want to start with is the flooring. Mm-hmm. We like to build from the floor up because it just makes the most sense. We got to mm-hmm. figure out, do you want a light flooring? Do you want a dark flooring? And then from there, we typically then go to the kitchen cabinets because then again, we're building up. So we'll pick out the kitchen cabinets. Then we'll go ahead and pick out the kitchen countertops. Mm-hmm. The same with the master bath. Mm-hmm. Then after the cabinetry for the master bath, we pick out the countertops and then the tile. What's going to go in the tile for the master shower and all the bathrooms, and so and then from there, we pick out the wall color and mm-hmm. then light fixtures and then light fixture placement. Where your can light's going to be. I mean, there's just a lot of different angles to look at it, but typically for new construction. There's always a great design center mm-hmm. That these developers will have. Mm-hmm. And with having a designer, it just makes the process so much easier for the client mm-hmm. because, they've got somebody that can look at it,
all together,
mm-hmm.
right.
And that's our job. We're,
mm-hmm.
we're visionaries and mm-hmm. we're able to help guide the client through the process because it can be overwhelming.
Sure.
They're like, wow, where do we start, even with the flooring? I mean, mm-hmm. do we go with real wood or do we go with porcelain, planks that look like real wood?
Sure.
What's going to look the best but be functional? So there's just a lot of different, aspects to it, but it's pretty seamless. I mean, mm-hmm. once you get going on it, we're able to, within a week, we could pick out all finishes for a unit.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now, what about going beyond the actual finishes, cabinetry, flooring, and how do you actually design a space with the furniture and the decor without it actually existing? You know what I mean?
Sure. Good question. So again, going back to the floor plan, you know, we go in and we space plan all the furniture from the floor plan the developer or the client gives us. And, you know, we're able to do that, you know, with AutoCAD and then also we come up with concept boards and we go ahead and we put all the furniture and a furniture package together that gives the client a great visual of what that space is actually going to look like with their furniture in it. So, and another aspect too, even before the furniture stage, is millwork. So not only do you have to think about your flooring, your kitchen, your master bath finishes, but what does it look like for, do you want custom bookshelves for your office, or do you want, you know, a custom media, you know, entertainment center? I mean, there's just a lot of different things to look at, not, you know, as far as that aspect too, before you even get to the furniture part of it. So, and again, working on the stage, there's a lot of that we're doing. So we're doing a lot of that. And that's part of when you're picking out the finishes, you pick out the finishes first, and then you have to decide, are you going to do any millwork? And then from there, then we get into space planning the furniture and then giving that client, you know, concept boards so that way they can actually see and feel, you know, what the unit's going to be like. So.
What are some of the trends that you are seeing from these new construction purchasers? Are most of them doing the wood look tile, or are they picking, you know, wood flooring? And are they doing these different build outs for entertainment centers? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I would say the porcelain wood looking plank flooring is by far, you know, a trend right now.
Really?
And I think it's not only it's a trend, but I think it's here to stay. I mean, because they've come a long way with that sort of look, and it really does look like real wood. And as long as you're, you know, selecting the correct flooring, and it's very durable. So we live in, you know, Southwest Florida, so you know, some of these units we're doing, all of them are on the water. So you know, as far as the durability, you don't really want real wood necessarily. Because you want that durability of, you know, a porcelain versus a natural material that could be damaged from water. So I think it's definitely a trend, but I think it's a trend here to stay. Also, you know, something we're seeing a lot of, people love the look of real marble. I mean, it's everywhere. I mean, it's, you know, marble's timeless. So I don't foresee marble really going anywhere either. So it's kind of an interesting time as far as some of these trends that we're seeing, I think might be here to stay, you know, because again, a lot of like white and gray. I mean, again, those are a lot of colors we're seeing. And in my professional opinion, you know, white and grays are timeless.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
So a lot of marble, a lot of porcelain wood looking flooring. You know, we're also seeing, you know, depending on the style, but, you know, seeing a lot of white kitchens. One thing that we are still seeing is like the lacquer looking kitchen cabinets. That's definitely a trend. Is
that a trend that you think will stay, or will that kind of pace out?
No, I don't think it. In my professional opinion, I don't think it'll stay. I think it's one of those things in 10 years, people will be ripping all that lacquer out and wanting to go back with some, you know, a matte or a wood look, you know, kitchen. But yeah, the lacquer definitely is a trend. So I wouldn't really recommend using the lacquer only because of that.
It's not timeless.
But that is one thing that, you know, as far as our, you know, with Mindy Webb Design, we definitely like to keep things timeless because we want to help, especially with finishes, we want to make sure that within 10 years, you know, it's still going to be, you know, again, timeless to the sense to where you're not having to rip out the flooring, you're not having to redo the kitchen cabinets. Maybe all you're having to do is get new furniture. And so that's a great way of saving on cost. You know, you really, that's one thing we're known for is timeless design. And being able to just, you know, get a new sofa or a new rug or pillows or new artwork, you know, versus having to rip out, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars worth of flooring or a new kitchen. So that's really important. I would say that's probably one of the best things as far as hiring a designer is in the long run, it should save you money because you don't want a trendy home. You want a timeless home. You want something that's going to last.
Absolutely. So, especially if you're buying new construction in a condominium where that property might not even be done for 2 or 3 years. So you're making decisions for the future. And then you have a timeline of, an expiration date, let's say on the style.
Right. Absolutely.
Are you finding that most people are leaning more towards the ultra modern, the kind of coastal contemporary, or like more of a rustic style?
That's another good question. I would say more transitional.
Okay.
I think it's, coastal, not so much. I think modern is probably more where people are leaning toward. Again, we're Southwest Florida, we're on the water. So, there's definitely, here and there, we'll give it a little bit of maybe of a coastal vibe, with textures.
Okay.
But I wouldn't say, I think for the most part, it's mainly more clean line modern.
Okay.
I think that's more of what we're doing or more transitional. Again, it just really depends on because you always want to take the exterior and the interior.
Sure.
So it really depends on, like the Sage, for instance, is a very contemporary looking building from the exterior.
Right.
So the interior, we have to make sure that is following through. If it's more of a Mediterranean looking style condo building, we're going to definitely, it's going to be a little more transitional because you don't want to go too contemporary.
Sure. So that makes sense. Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
So at what point do you recommend people bringing a designer on? There is a little bit of a gap between when you actually sign a contract and when they're building out the residence.
Sure.
So when do you recommend that happening?
Right away, immediately. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the faster you can get a designer and get a good designer on board is really important because you don't want to start getting into it yourself and then you're having to go back to the drawing board.
Sure.
It's time effective if you bring on a designer right away
from the beginning.
Yeah, it makes the process much easier for the client.
Okay. Perfect. Well, that is great. This has been so awesome, Mindy. Thank you very much for all your expertise.
Absolutely.
And for all of you, those who have purchased new construction, whether you're in Florida or elsewhere, her expertise can work in many different markets. And I'm imagining that you do a lot of this virtually with clients too, through different consultations.
Sure.
So she's an expert in what she does and definitely someone that you should reach out to if you're buying new construction or looking for any design work at all. We'll put her contact information in the description below. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and thank you, Mindy, for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yes.